Hello, welcome to the People Profit Podcast, the show where we flip the script on traditional business thinking and prove that when you put people first, profits follow. I'm Sandra Coker, your guide on this journey to more engaged teams, loyal customers, and a healthier bottom line. These episodes are brought to you by Human Power Solutions, helping organizations unlock the human potential that powers performance. Whether you're a leader, an HR pro, or a curious change maker, buckle up. We're diving into fresh stories, real-world strategies, and a few laughs along the way. Ready to turn your workplace into a profit-powered people machine? Let's get started. Welcome back to the People Profit Podcast, the go-to show for young leaders ready to level up their careers and make a real impact. I'm Sandra Coker, and this podcast is all about giving you the mindsets and strategies to thrive as a newly promoted manager or an ambitious professional aiming for that next big step. We're diving into how to break through plateaus and unlock your full potential with an incredible guest today, Rochelle Carrington. Rochelle is the CEO of Emotional Intelligence Blueprinting, a former Sandler training CEO who scaled her business to 7 figures, and is a neuroscience expert who's helped leaders silence their inner critic and lead with clarity. She's here to share game-changing strategies to overcome self-sabotage and boost your leadership game. So grab a notebook. This episode is packed with actionable insights you won't want to miss. Let's get started. Rochelle, welcome to the People Profit Podcast. I am so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Very excited to be here as well.
Awesome. Let's dive right in. So I was reading through the prep forms that you had provided for us, and I'm so curious, your journey from leading sales teams at Glamour Magazine to scaling a Sandler training franchise, which is not easy, 1.2 million. It's really inspiring. Can you share a story of a young leader like yourself who you helped get unstuck and what clears the way for people's breakthroughs?
Sure. I think the first thing that clears the way is that people have to have self awareness. And oftentimes we feel like we have it. And a lot of research out there will tell you that most people actually don't. You've got to have the awareness and the understanding that when you're in a leadership position, leaders are actually a lot of times on emotional autopilot. And so they lead more on the emotions that are driving them than they actually do on strategy, because the emotions that the leader has gets transferred to everyone else on their team, in their company, within their structure. And so the first thing is that you've got to have that awareness, that self-awareness. And then after that, it's really understanding, how do I release those emotional patterns that are keeping me stuck? So there's a lot more that goes into that, but those are really the first 2 things that need to happen to get somebody unstuck. You got to know that it's happening and then take the steps to undo it.
So I love that. You got to know yourself, but also the patterns. I think we all fall into these different patterns that our thought processes, right? And I think many young leaders face that self-doubt or that procrastination as they step into these new roles. And a lot of that is just maybe they're a little bit afraid. When you talk about leadership roadblocks, and when you start clearing those subconscious emotional roadblocks, that's really where the keys come into. How can they use your neuroscience approach to break free from some of those emotional roadblocks?
So we've got to understand that back in the 1990s, neuroscience actually discovered that it's our emotions that drive every single thing else that we do. Before that, we were all really obsessed with take action, and then actions will lead to results. And so as a result of that, all we did was focus on, what are the actions I'm doing? I either do more or I do them better. Now what we understand is that emotions always fire before logic. It's about 350 milliseconds that your emotion will fire. Then a thought will come. The thought is intended to make sense of that emotion. Then that drives your action, and then that gets your results. So for any new leaders, you've got to really go all the way back to the emotions. in order to understand where you're self-sabotaging. Now, from that, what we need to understand is that all of our emotions get stored in our body. They're stored in the
Mhm.
cells of our body, they get stored in our nervous system, and they actually go way back to long before you ever thought about leading anything when you were in that 0 to 7 time frame. And
Mm,
we have different emotional experiences throughout our life. And when we have really emotionally charged experiences, especially negative ones, what happens is that memory, that feeling gets saved in the nervous system of your body and it starts to just build. It becomes like a little cake, layered cake within your nervous system. Those become muscle memory.
okay.
So that is why when people wonder, why do I just respond or react really quickly to something? Somebody says something and I get defensive. Somebody does something and suddenly I get really mad. I get a flash of anger or sadness or guilt. Those are the things that are generally holding people back. With that being said, what the nervous system does is as it is creating all of this muscle memory of these emotionally charged experiences, the nervous system is there to keep you safe.
Okay.
And so what it does is it will say, this is what we do. It gets trained over time. This is what we do to keep safe. So where does self-doubt come in? Self-doubt comes in when the nervous system says, you know what? For you to, let's say, start your own business, that doesn't feel safe. So it feels like self-doubt. Or
Okay.
for you to ask for that promotion, nope, that doesn't feel safe. So you procrastinate. So we have all of these symptoms, procrastination, self-doubt, etc., that happen, but they've all been saved in your nervous system over time. So
Almost like programming?
yes, yes. Think of
Okay.
it like you have created your own emotional blueprint. We all do it. Every human being on the entire planet. There is no one that is above this because it's human behavior and it's
Yeah.
neuroscience, it's psychology. It's just the way we all work. So the first step again is that awareness of really going, okay, where am I maybe reacting in a way that number one isn't serving me, isn't serving the
Mhm.
people around me, isn't getting me the results I want. And being able to understand the triggers that you have, the emotions that are created from those triggers. And then you can start to look at emotional release work, which is basically just using neuroscience protocols to release the emotion out of the nervous system. And you
Yep.
can do it without retelling stories, going and living through past trauma. It is not therapy. It is not like going back to your childhood and talking about how you fell off your bike when you were 6 and you
Right.
thought we're going to
Yeah.
make fun of you. That's you don't
Yeah.
have to do that. But that's where, just as an understanding, if people are out there going, why do I have this self doubt when my conscious mind, my logic says, I know I can do this,
Right.
but my subconscious, which holds my emotions, goes, yeah, but what if you can't? What if you fail? Oh my gosh, you don't really think you can. And what happens is the two of them fight. And that's where we end up with self doubt and self sabotage.
So I love this. My daughter's really into neuroscience, and so I love having these conversations. So my one of my questions for you is, as we're talking to these younger, like our podcast is really focused on next up, right? Who's next up?
Right.
We're dealing with people my age. I'm a Gen Xer,
Right.
and we're not the kindest people in the world. Some people are. We're not that great sometimes, and it's because we've been programmed to take action, right? So suppress everything, all that stuff. We don't talk about any of that stuff and we take action. So what's your advice for these leaders that are coming up that are like, wait, there's a better way of doing things? How do they combat the people that are in charge of their promotions and in charge of their careers right now?
I think the first thing is nobody's really in charge of your promotion or your career because there are always a lot more options out there than you think.
Yeah.
So you've got to take the responsibility that says, if I want this promotion and this particular person is not willing to help me get there or allow me to get there, then I've got to look at other ways around it and not feel like I'm just stuck at the mercy of this particular person.
Good.
And then I think you've got to obviously, anytime you're getting promoted, you're going to prove your value and your worth by the actions you take, but
Mhm.
also by your emotional reaction, because the biggest thing for people to understand is strategy and actions are great, but people feel what you feel.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a boss that feels the energy that you're pushing out there, which we all do, silent energy, if they're feeling your self doubt, your procrastination, your maybe anger or guilt, if they feel that, they're not going to have those are not positive emotions that someone goes, oh, okay, yeah, this is someone I want to promote. When you're working in those positions, you've really got to work on how is it that I am feeling right now. And the biggest thing I could say is you think about what will it be like when you get promoted into that desired position. Create that visual in your mind and then go into what will it feel like? How will I feel? How will I be walking around? How will I talk differently, walk differently? What clothes will I wear that might be different? How do I interact with people differently? And then once you get that feeling, the feeling is the most important part. You
Mhm.
walk around like with that feeling all the time.
Love
That's
it.
create the world from inside out versus outside in. And your boss will feel it. They'll feel something different. They won't know what it is. Nobody can put their finger on it, but they will feel it. And I can guarantee you hold that feeling for as long as you can all throughout the day. You will see people reacting and responding to you differently.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that's great. And I agree with you. No one is in charge of your careers, but I think that's what a lot of people are thinking out there. So thank you for sharing that. So when you look at, so I want to shift a little bit with emotional intelligence, right? And putting that into action. I think that's one of the biggest skills that most people are lacking these days. And your work really emphasizes that leaders transmit emotional patterns, as we just talked about, right? How can they use emotional intelligence to handle stress or conflict calmly and with actual intention, right?
Yes. So, a lot of it is, again, self awareness is the place to start with everything. And I would say that our work goes a level beyond just emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a concept that will tell you to be aware of your emotions, be aware of other people's emotions, and
Yeah.
attempt to regulate. Okay, that sounds great, but a lot of people are like, "How do I regulate?" Because I got these triggers where all of a sudden somebody questions me and I feel highly defensive, even
Yeah.
though I don't have a reason to. Because that is when you see that happening again and again, and we are all creatures of habit and we have patterns of behavior.
Right.
Be aware of your own pattern of behavior. You really almost a third party watching yourself as you interact with people throughout the day and watching the places where you go, this is where I work in calm and confidence and clarity. This is where I do really well in these situations with these types of people. And here's where I find myself falling off a little bit. And then you can start to work on the areas where you're falling off. And that's
Mhm.
where the only way to get rid of the trigger is to do an emotional release. You can't, because you can't out logic biology. Emotions, the negative emotions are trapped in that nervous system. And until you release them, you can try to logic your way, but you can't use a logical tool to fix an emotional issue. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you got trapped emotions and they need to be released out.
Yeah.
And there are certain ways, generally, you need a little bit of help doing that. But there are some ways that you can do it. If you learn a protocol, you could do it on your own. We have a 4-minute stress reset that
Yep.
allows people to learn a very quick protocol and you can get rid of stress in minutes.
Love
And
it.
and when you do that, then the logic comes back online because when you're emotional under stress or doubt or fear or whatever it may be, your logic doesn't work anymore.
Hmm.
Emotions always override logic.
I love this. I could talk about it all day.
Running a business is hard. Developing your people shouldn't be. At Human Power Solutions, we act as your outsourced chief learning officer, designing custom learning and development experiences that actually move the needle. No fluff, no cookie cutter workshops, just results. Whether your people need better communication, stronger leadership, or less burnout, We provide strategic solutions that align with your goals and keep your team moving forward. Visit hpowersolutions.com and unlock your team's full potential without disrupting operations.
So you've helped leaders boost efficiency, I think by 33% through better focus. And I think part of that is through the system, right? Being able to help them to self-regulate and just recalibrate. So when I think about the new leaders, when I think about people that are being promoted, juggling those new responsibilities, let's say in their first 60 days or so of a promotion, how do you help them, or how can they prioritize effectively and avoid burnout, which is so prevalent in today's workplace?
Absolutely. Burnout is usually something that is a learned feeling, right? That's when the nervous system gets so full that it just goes fight, flight, freeze. And it's like pouring water into a pitcher. And at some point, it just starts overflowing. And that's what feels like burnout. But in order to just some practical strategies that you can use, you got to think about, you've got your entire task list, and there's really about 20% of it that is actually really needs to be done. And the rest of the 80% is that nice to do.
Yeah.
And so every single day when you come in, or actually you do it the night before, you figure out, if I can only do 2 tasks tomorrow that will move me forward, move my team forward into that next goal, what are those 2 things? Put each one on a sticky note, put that on your desk, nothing else on there, because it's way too easy to get distracted. No matter how your brain works, we all get distracted. And so you put those 2 stickies on, and those are the only 2 things that you focus on when you first come in. Once those are done, the beauty of a sticky is you get that wonderful, you get to pull it up, crumble it up and throw it to the trash. And that always feels really good. You have to look at that. And then you're not rewriting your task list, which is another thing that we do to procrastinate, because we don't want to do the task. So let's rewrite the task list so it looks nicer. There's not so many scribbles on it. But that's a good thing.
So true. Yeah, you're in my world right now. I'm writing my list. Like,
I've got stickies. That is one of the best things that I started doing, was just doing the sticky and not having all this stuff everywhere.
I love
And the
that.
other thing is just stop multitasking.
Yeah.
And easier said than done, but you have to retrain yourself to focus, to stop trying to write the email and listen to the webinar and do Twitter on your phone or X on your phone. You've got to really just say, I am just going to focus on this one thing.
Yeah.
And all the productivity research will tell you that when you focus on one thing, you'll do it faster and you'll do it better.
Yeah.
Yet we all have those moments where we're trying to do a few things at one time, and it's just never effective.
It's funny. We've gone through an awakening in my company where we're like, wait, we have a lot of initiatives and nothing's getting done well and nothing's being finished. And I do this for a living. A couple of weeks ago, we were like, all right, let's just stop and focus on these things. And my team has to stop me sometimes, but what about this idea? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay. So but it's made such a difference in how we're all moving along. So the slowdown to speed up is huge. I'm trying to think about how I want to ask this question. In guided leaders to break through to the next level in 60 days by clearing out emotional patterns. So I'd like to get a little tactical here for a minute. What's one exercise young professionals who are feeling capable but they're stuck, what's one exercise they can use to start to rewire their brain and unlock their potential?
One of the biggest things is stress is the biggest problem in everyone's life. We know that stress leads to all manner of disease and other issues. We also know that when we're under a lot of stress, that again, the logical brain just goes offline. Your creativity goes down, your problem solving goes down, your ability to see things clearly and make decisions decreases. And so one easy thing to do with stress is, what most people do is we live either in the past or we live in the future.
Yeah.
So we have a tendency to go back into the past and we start to relive these moments. And I would say, number one, stop doing that, because living in the past is always going to give you regret. where you go back and you go, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. The thing is, you did what you thought was right at the time with the information that you had. So
Right.
it's really not fair to be in today's moment and with new information, because we learn things every day, we change every day, and to go into the past, even if it was 2 days ago, and go, oh, I wish I had done this. So
Right.
every time you feel yourself going into the past, you've got to pull yourself back into the present. So regret lives in the past. Stress and anxiety live in the future. That's when people go into the future and they go, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if it doesn't happen? All these what ifs." And so you've also got to pull yourself out of the future and just be present. Now, again, easier said than done, but what are some ways that you can stay present? One is start to feel your body, for example, your legs on the chair. What does it feel like? What does it feel like, the sweater or the necklace around your neck? What does it feel like to have a ring on your finger? Anytime you focus into a feeling, that even if you're not sleeping at night, this is also a great thing to do too. Instead of letting your mind wander, you go, what does it feel like to lay in this bed? And your brain will get bored enough that it'll just go to sleep. That's how you center yourself back into the present. And the more young leaders can stay in the present, focus on it's all you have, and stay out of either side of the past or the future, the less stress and anxiety and regret they're going to have, and the more calm and confidence, because you just focus on what you have right in front of you. Everything else is going to take care of itself in one way or another. And just staying in the present is one of the most important things.
I love that. But I'm going to bring you back to the past right now.
Oh, okay. I hope it's a good past.
I think so, anyway. Because I think we can learn a lot from people's experiences, and your experience in your career. I think there's so much wisdom to be gleaned by it. I loved meeting you when we met, and I loved our conversation. So I'm so happy that you're sharing all this with our audience. So with you, with 30 plus years in leadership, right? And you got the award like the David H. Sandler Award, huge. What's one lesson from your career, perhaps from Glamour or Sandler days, that you wish you'd known as a young leader starting out?
Oh, that's a big one. I think that my leadership philosophy has always been that your job is to make people better than they were when they first met you. That's really what you're there to do as a leader. And so what I wish I had known back then was more of the knowledge that emotions drove action and results. I wish I had known that, because I would have been much more in touch with what was going on with me emotionally, and therefore why I was getting great results and sometimes not such great results either, because every road has the paths that wind around all over.
Yeah.
What I had a knowledge of, I was really focused on action, and that served me well, but it also leads to you get tired. After
Yeah.
a while, it's, oh my gosh, how much more action? How much more can I do? How much more can I try to push this thing? And I wish I had known a little bit, been more in touch with what was happening to me emotionally, so that I could have worked on that. And then from the emotional standpoint, you get inspired action.
Right.
Emotions are in the right place and more on the positive, abundant, everything's going to work out. And that's not just positive thinking, it's actually how you feel. Then when you take action, the action is inspired. And when your action is inspired, you actually can do less and work less, because you're far more effective. And so I wish I had known all of that. That would have been incredibly helpful. And my business, I know my business would have been bigger.
Yeah. It was pretty big. So how did you make this transition from Glamour to running the Sandler team and that franchise? And now you're on your own. What was that journey like for you?
So the journey to Glamour started when I was 12, and I was growing up in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I just loved the magazine and I love fashion. And I just said, I'm going to work for that magazine someday. And luckily my parents were like, okay, we don't know what that means, but okay. I said, I'm moving to and this is just what's going to happen. And I just had this vision of myself doing that. And so I just really followed what I thought would be the path to getting there. And all of that worked out. Started out in sales and then moved into leadership because I always had the goal of becoming a leader of some sort. I saw my father do it and I thought, how hard could it actually be? You get to tell everybody what to do. Wouldn't that be fun? It's a little more than that.
That's what every little girl's dream is. I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm the boss.
Exactly. So that sort of led through there. And then I spent about 16 years in the magazine business and decided that I wanted to be my own boss. I decided that I was done with the corporate thing and it was a great time. I learned a ton. However, I had a big commute and I just didn't want to do that anymore. So then I transitioned. That was a very scary transition from going from corporate America to basically having your own company, being the president of your own company of one person at the time. And the mindset shift the identity shift that goes from being part of a big name like Glamour to nobody knows who the heck I am and what I'm doing. And I feel like I don't either. And just going through and learning that. And that's part of, for any young leader, you've got to have that mindset shift or that identity shift of being peers with other people to now being above other people. And that's a big identity shift because that is a change in the way you view yourself, the way that you interact with other people, and then the actions that you take. And so when I was having my sales training business, I was working with a lot of executives, a lot of CEOs, a lot of founders, a lot of up and coming leaders. And the thing that I found is you can teach technique and strategy, but when people have these emotional blocks, they don't execute those other things as well as they could. And that's what led me down that road. And I also had I had burnout at a certain period. And I went, what do I do about it? This doesn't feel good. I feel like somehow I'm stuck. And so I went through the whole process of emotional release as well. And I'm a product of what we do with people now and just helping them for people that already are very good at what they do. When you get rid of those emotional patterns, they just take off. And it's really transformational. But that was really the journey to where we got here. Personal experience and working with people where I could see that they were doing self-sabotage and I wanted to have tools to be able to help them get rid of that.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So many nuggets in there, right? It's like you've experienced burnout. You left the big company to do your own thing. And that's not for everybody. It really, when I talk with entrepreneurs and I talk with people that are thinking about it, I'm like, you got to have the stomach for the roller coaster because it's a roller coaster, right? If you can stomach it, then, but those emotions and all that imposter syndrome and all those things, it does come to light. So it's not for everybody, but I love hearing your story. And I love the fact that you're very authentic. Hey, I have my own stuff to release. I think we all do. And I'd love to grab some little 7-year-olds and be like, let's release this now so that you don't have all the angst later.
I have done it with my 2 daughters who are well over 7, but I just thought, man, if they could release that now and not have to carry that around like I did, and so many of us do, that's life-changing. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I digress because that could be a whole other thing for us. But I do want to introduce the audience to your free ebook, Biohacking Your Brain 101. It sounds like it's a perfect resource for people to rewire their limiting beliefs. Can you tell us what listeners will gain from it and how can they connect with you at Emotional Intelligence Blueprinting?
Yeah, so what you're going to understand is the science behind the brain and the emotions and why is it that your emotions are driving everything. And that's really what the book is going to go into, as well as a couple of tips to help you start to rewire some things on your own. And you can get that right off of my website, emotionalbp.com. The best way to get a hold of me, there's a couple of ways. One is to email me. That email is Rochelle at emotionalbp.com. And the other thing, if you want to learn more about any of this, whether it's the science or certain techniques and things like that, I've got a blog on Substack and it's called Mindset Matters. And you can go on there. It's free to subscribe. And there are some tools and different things that you can learn from those blogs as well.
So we'll make sure that we have links in our comment section below. Make sure that we have everyone's connected to you. And I'm really, so this has just been an amazing conversation, Rochelle. Thank you so much for sharing. I think transformative insights, not just for our young leaders, but for anyone that's listening here today. From clearing emotional roadblocks to leading with intention, you've given our listeners a roadmap to break through plateaus and thrive. So don't miss Rochelle's free ebook, Biohacking Your Brain 101. The link is below. That's at theemotionaldp.com. And it really is packed with strategies to unlock your potential. You can also reach her, as she said, at Rochelle at emotionaldp.com for more information and strategies. So that's all today for today's People Profit podcast. If you're ready to step up, subscribe, leave a review, and share this with a friend. I'm Sandra Coker, and we'll see you next time with more tools to lead, grow, and profit. Keep shining. Rochelle, thank you again so much for being on our show today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
That's a wrap on this episode of the People Profit Podcast. If you found a nugget of wisdom or even just a spark of inspiration, share the love, subscribe, leave us a review, and pass the episode along to a colleague who's ready to build a people-first culture. Big thanks to our sponsor, Human Power Solutions, for championing workplace where humans thrive and profits rise. Want to learn how they can energize your team? Head over to hpowersolutions.com to get started. I'm Sandra Coker, reminding you that when you invest in people, you invest in profit. See you next time.